Hello, this is Erin from the Witch of Saturn. Today I am doing a VR response to Tarot Magpie's Libra season decks. Now, this was not a video that asked for a VR response. I don't think that she intended it to be something that anyone would run with, but I just have to say that I was so inspired by it, and I feel like I just wanted to go through my own deck collection and use her prompts to show you guys my own Libra season decks. And there's a couple of other things that have recently happened that have made me even more excited to look at my own decks through this lens. The first is this casting sticker sheet that I collaborated with my friend Jamie Sawyer on. She did the artwork design and created even the concept of a casting sticker. These are all of her RWS Redux deck, but we collaborated on this. I helped her shift the layout of the casting sticker, and also I pull all the charts for the casting sticker. So basically, this is something that you take your own birth chart. This is my birth chart in the center here, and it gets placed in the wheel of the zodiac through the lens of tarot. So that whatever your rising sign is, I have a 5-degree Capricorn rising, that would correspond with the Devil card. And then the zodiac follows around there. And this is really meant to be a tool to better understand your chart or to understand it through the lens of tarot. And one thing that I really love about this is that then you can see the individual planets and which decan they're in, which we will talk about the decans a little bit today. And I'm just going to keep this out and kind of use it as we go through Libra, because as you can see here, I have a Libra stellium. I have Mars, Saturn, and Pluto, which is a 1982 baby placement here in the 10th house of Libra. So Libra is very strong in my chart, especially because the ruler of my ascendant is Saturn. Saturn rules the sign of Capricorn, and I have Saturn here in the Saturn decan of Libra, exalted. So it's a very strong planet, hence the name, the Witch of Saturn. So yeah, no wonder Libra season is what kind of got me all excited about doing this video. And then one of the other things that I'm really excited about is this Deck and Walk spread book by Marlena Teresa, who I just had the pleasure of meeting and shooting a video with. And I then went and purchased this digital spread book because I'm just so excited to be able to have spreads to do for the time period in which the sun is in each decan. So all of these things kind of came together for me and just really made me want to do this video. A deck that corresponds to the Cardinal Air nature of Libra. And for me, that is the Spacious Tarot. When I think about the element of air, I automatically think about this deck. It is the main character, the space, the air, in the Spacious Tarot. There's also something about this color palette and the artwork that also reminds me of Libra season. But really, it's truly the space that exists within each card that invites you to mentally venture to a different place in your reading with the Spacious Tarot that I just so enjoy. I'm a huge fan of landscape decks, and I mean, I really enjoy a deck with no people in it. I just feel like it gives me a much clearer reading, and this deck is no exception for that. And this is why I chose this for the element air in a cardinal sign. It does give a direct kind of initiatory vibe. The next deck that reminds me of Libra season is, of course, the Seasons of the Witch Mabon Oracle. This is a mass market deck. I should mention that Spacious Tarot that I just showed is an indie deck and is currently out of print. This deck is one that I have all of the Seasons of the Witch decks, and I use them for a very specific purpose. I keep these in my closet, my closet altar space, where I use it to connect to the season that we're in. So I have been using this deck since Lunasa, and I will stop using it after today because then I will start using the Samhain deck. That's just how I particularly use them. But there is really no other deck that embodies this fall vibe to me more than Seasons of the Witch. So I had to include this one, as Libra season is what initiates autumn. It starts off fall. The next deck that I chose for the archetype that Sylvie kind of dubbed for Libra in her video, which was the Curator, which I really like, I really agree with. And I chose for this archetype and for the embodiment of an autumnal vibe, the Folkloric Forest Tarot. This is an indie deck that is available by Lennox Reese. I absolutely love this deck. It's a curated art deck, and it is such a fall vibe. I have so many amazingly great things to say about this deck. It is absolutely one of my favorites. I've been working with it for Two of Mom's Deck Connectors Club this week with my friend Jay at Iridescent Tarot, and it has just been a really great reader for me. And I just love the way that Lennox Reese makes her art choices for her decks. They really do tell a story, and I think that this embodies not only the curator aspect of Libra, but the overall autumnal color palette and fall vibe that we get in the area where I live, which is Bucks County, Pennsylvania, on the East Coast of the United States, Northern Hemisphere, where we really do start to see things, start to turn this color. The next deck that I have is the Final Rose Tarot. This is another out-of-print indie deck with a ton of knockoffs out there. So if this is something that you want in your collection, you have to just be really careful that you're not, that you're buying an actual real copy that comes in the two-part box like this. I chose the Final Rose Tarot to embody Venus, which is the planetary ruler of Libra, because Venus is all about relationships. It's how we interrelate. It's about harmony and union. And this deck is based on the reality series, The Bachelor or The Bachelorette. And it's hilarious. I love reality TV. I actually haven't watched The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, but I will now that there's going to be a Secret Life of Mormon Wives star on it. And this to me not only shows that relational aspect of Venus, but it also encompasses this Venusian Libra type of color palette. I know that Sylvie had said that pink, like I'm wearing pink in honor of today being the fall equinox and the sun moving into the sign of Libra. I agree, this pink is a very Libra color, and so I had to use this deck for that. The other thing is that, and I say this, remember, I have this Libra stellium here. So I'm really talking about myself. Please don't be offended by this, but Libra can be a very petty sign. It can be a sign that really likes drama. And yeah, this is a petty deck. And so it brings the drama, it brings the pettiness, it brings the Venusian pink landscape, and it's all about trying to find love and relationships. So for me, this is perfection. And there we are, the proposal. Oh. The next deck that I chose for the archetype of justice, which is correlated to Libra and the major arcana, is the Modern Witch Tarot. This is a mass market deck and one that I really love. It's in this Moonlit Fae bag, which also is very Libra with the beauty aesthetic. I chose this deck as a more obvious choice for justice because it is such an inclusive deck that takes the Rider-Waite-Smith and gives it a modern spin where we see people who have been marginalized represented and given space. There's diversity, equality, and fairness, and I find that this deck reads very much that way. It's very much a deck that shows me in pictures exactly what's going on. I use this deck to do predictive work, but it will literally, like, I have to pay close attention to what is being shown in the picture. For example, I think actually it might have been these 3 cards that came up for me in the last reading I did with this, which was like, show me what my day looked like. It was literally like waiting to film, messing around with my lighting, which is on a big tripod like this, and then like editing and uploading on my computer. So it's kind of in that way like a basic bitch, and I mean that in the best way possible. The next deck that I chose for the Justice card is Spirit Keeper's Tarot by Benebell Wen, which is out of print. But if you ever want a tile set of this, my friend Jamie makes them and sells them, so you could get the artwork in really cool tarot tiles, and she collabs with Benebell on that. So did I choose this because Benebell Wen is a lawyer? I mean, maybe when thinking about justice and the law, like it just sprang to mind. But I also just think that the amount of research that went into the creation of this deck and these cards, and the amount of knowledge that was poured into this Spirit Keepers project is very much an embodiment of what it means to be Libran and to do justice to the systems of tarot and the history of, I mean, all of these different systems that she incorporated into this. So to me, this is a very justice deck. The next deck that I chose for the first decan of Libra, which we see in 2 of Swords, which is the moon in Libra, is the Narrative Alchemy Tarot. So one of the reasons that I chose this is because of this rainbow color palette of this deck. And this is a more personal choice because my oldest daughter is a Libra sun. She has her sun in the first decan of Libra, and her favorite color is rainbow, and I just couldn't pick a deck that didn't have that for this decan. But I do think that Narrative Alchemy fits within the archetype of moon in Libra, of Libra 1, because in this card, we see an opportunity to drop into our subconscious realm, right? Like oftentimes this card will be described as having to make a choice, but I think that there's so much more to that, in that it's an invitation for us to tap into our own intuition. She's very reminiscent of the High Priestess in that way, we also see the reference to the image of justice. And it invites us into learning symbols of the unconscious. So it's a need to kind of tap in to see what's beneath and what might be working right now that needs to, but that won't be working forever and that needs to be addressed. And I find that this deck, with its very simplistic aesthetic, gives me the opportunity to do that. Not only does it give this keyword so it can function as an oracle with the keyword, but it also gives this color that corresponds to one of the 7 chakras. So it gives not only a keyword to work with, but then a deeper energetic system to understand. And then it also has the tarot correspondence down here. So it really, on the surface, may look very basic or simplistic, but underneath there's so much more to this deck. And I think that it just really embodies 2 of Swords, Moon in Libra in that way. I also think, obviously, like I mentioned, that this color palette is very Libran, and also the guidebook being in Chrissy Bentley's handwriting is just such an incredible aesthetic. I love it. I just got this deck. I've only done 1 reading with it, and I'm already just completely enamored with it. So the way that I would use this concept to understand my Saturn placement would be to pull the Justice card, which we have right here. So you don't even technically need to pull that. And then I would say, okay, Saturn is the world, right? So what do these 2 look like? What does the world look like in the Justice card? And knowing that Saturn is exalted in the sign of Libra, I would say that, okay, the rules, boundaries, and limitations that Saturn loves to create when it manifests in the real world absolutely thrives in a sign that is all about equality, fairness, and rules, right? Now, the decan of my Saturn is in Libra 2, which is 3 of Swords, Saturn in Libra. So now, what do these things look like together? Now, 3 of Swords gets a very bad rap, and Sylvie even mentioned in her video being over this particular imagery. It's really like unfairly negative because this card is so much more complicated. The title of the hermetic title of this card is Sorrow. But really this is about very important agreements and contracts that we make that involve trust, and it's only in situations where we're very trusting that we have the possibility of being betrayed. My understanding of this particular decan and all of the decans comes from my favorite astrologer, Austin Coppock, who wrote 36 Faces, which is an out-of-print book. He's currently rewriting it, and I've taken his tarot and astrology course, which I can't recommend more. He's just absolutely fantastic. And yeah, that's where my background in all of this comes from. So the deck that I chose for 3 of Swords is very personal because of this very strong energy of Saturn in Libra 2. The Wild Unknown was a deck that made me commit to my tarot practice. I had been into tarot for years and years, just kind of off and on before this deck came along. This is it was an indie deck by Kim Kranz. It's now mass market, and this is the mass market edition that came in the box set when it first came out, long before I was ever into indie decks. And I used this deck for years. There's something about it that reminds me of Saturn in Libra, this kind of structure, right? This linear kind of fine detail, is very Saturnian to me, but then there's also the kind of rainbowy, brighter color palette that feels very Libra. And even this, when I thought about the Three of Swords and the sword suit and cards that in decks, when I thought about the sword suit in particular decks that are disturbing to me, I thought about this deck. When I first started using this deck, I pulled the swords cards, the more disturbing ones, all of the time. It really made me face the cards in the tarot system that made me uncomfortable. It really made me go to different places within myself and to grow through discomfort. And that is how Saturn teaches us. I mean, like, look at this. I would pull this all the time and be like, no, like, why? And so this is just a very kind of tough teacher. Saturn's very much like 2 + 2 = 4. You can't make it equal 5. And now you need to go back and start from the beginning and show your work because you're wrong. Like, it's just a very tough love planet, but it does have, this is another one, see, does have our best interest at heart. Saturn wants us to build something for ourselves and do things the right way and commit to doing things a little bit day by day. And there's something about the artwork in this deck and the overall vibe that it has that just really embodies that for me. The next deck that I have is the Meraki Tarot. This is the 2nd edition. This is by Carrie Boucher of Boucher Designs. I hope I'm saying that correctly. And I chose this for Libra 3, the decan that is Jupiter in the sign of Libra. This is where my natal Pluto is. So I have planets in all 3 decans. I have Mars in Libra 1, and I have Saturn in Libra 2, and then Pluto in Libra 3. So I get the triple crown of Libra energy here. So with Jupiter in the sign of Libra, we associate this card typically with rest. And when I think about rest, I think about sleep and dreaming. And this is the deck that really embodies that dreamy landscape for me. I also think that the art and the colors are very Libra-esque. We see these soft pinks and the airy kind of nature of the art. It's ethereal, it's a little surreal, and it also reminds me of the expansive nature of Jupiter. According to Austin Coppock, this is also a card that represents truce after war and conflict, a moment of rest to reclaim a centered state of mind. And I use this deck really to kind of, here's 4 of Swords, to really kind of understand a little bit more of my dream world and my subconscious, and to go into a place of peace. I've mentioned in my other videos that my dream world is not like does not feel very friendly to me. It's not, I wouldn't say I have good dreams. They're always like a little weird and disturbing, and they linger, and it's something that has gotten better throughout my life, but is still, ongoing for me. And so having this deck that I can turn to kind of give myself truce after something that, energetically does not necessarily feel so great for me, or to have a deeper understanding of what's going on in that realm is very helpful. There's also an aspect to this card because Jupiter's the ruler of Pisces. I think we see this real Piscean vibe here in this deck too. And Jupiter is also the ruler of Sagittarius, which loves to party. And so this to me is always like that, like after you've overdone it, you need that little bit of rest. And I find that to be a similar theme, like my dreams have kind of overdone it. I need a little bit of space and peace after that. And that's what I use this deck for. So that's what I have for you. Those are my decks for Libra season. I just wanted to once again say thank you to the people who inspired me to make this video and to do some of this deeper work. So first off, Tarot Magpie, I'll link her original video in the description below. Please check it out. She's brilliant and I just love the work that she's doing in the tarot community. It's very, very valuable. And then to my dear friend Jamie Sawyer, if you're interested in getting one of these stickers with your chart in it, you can go to her website, which I will link in the description below. I just love collaborating with her on this. I didn't mention earlier, but I am a professional astrologer, so this is the chart that I would pull for your birth chart, where then you could begin to explore your chart through the signs and the cards that correspond with the signs in the tarot, and then also get into more of the decanic work through that. And then also to Marlena Teresa, I can't wait to dig into this Deck and Walk spread book. I'm going to do that right now that I've finished filming this. And so I appreciate you if you've watched this far. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you soon. Bye.